Hello all, here I am coming up with one series of Illustrator, that's an Adobe Illustrator. So let me explain you something about Adobe Illustrator. So Adobe Illustrator is a vector application. Okay, so let me explain you two things over here. One is vector and other is raster. So what is vector? Vector application, or I can say vector graphics. So vector graphics are composed of points. So when I talk about the points, so for example, if you see something over here, I'll show you a small example of vector. This is also example, this is example of vector. So definitely this is converted into an image, but when this was created, it was created in a vector application. So vector images are mostly created using lines, circles, rectangles or different shapes. So vector graphics are composed of points. So that's what your vector graphics is. So what are raster graphics? So raster graphics are composed of pixels. So when I talk about pixels, what are pixels? Pixels are small tiny blocks which makes up an image. So for example, if I open any image, if I click a picture from a camera and if I zoom that particular picture, any of the picture, if you take any of the picture over here, if you take any picture and if you zoom it, you see that these are the pixels over here. So these are the pixels. Pixels are the color values which makes up an image. So that's the difference between your vector graphics and raster graphics. So definitely where vector graphics is used and where raster graphics is used, I'll explain you that. Vector graphics are the graphics which are mostly used for print. What kind of print? So can be used for creation of uh, logos, can be used for creation of visiting cards, can be used for brochures, banners, where you can utilize it for the vector stuff. Also can be utilized for creating packaging covers. Also can be used for creation of some artworks like face or something. So different artworks can be used over here. So that's where you can utilize a lot of different things, etc. over here where it's utilized. For that, we also have two color modes over here which we utilize it over here. One is your RGB and other is your CMYK. So RGB stands for red, green and blue. That are your primary colors. So where it is used, this is totally used digitally. So whatever work you're going to do digitally on the screen, which you're not going to print it, for that we mostly use this colors called RGB. That's your primary colors. Our screen detects the RGB colors. Second color mode is CMYK. C stands for cyan, magenta, yellow and krypton. This is a color mode which is widely used for print. So for example, if I'm going to work anything related to the print, I'm going to convert this, or I can say I'm not going to convert, I'm going to set the file with a color mode of CMYK if I'm going to print it. If I'm not going to print it, if I'm going to use it for a blog or if I'm going to upload it somewhere, I'm going to use this color mode. That's the RGB color mode. CMYK color mode, the printer, you see the colors in the inks, they have the CMYK color mode. And the third color mode which we have, that's a grayscale. So grayscale is a black and white color mode, we can say. So if you set this grayscale, whatever you do, it will give you a black and white color mode. So which are the applications which we use over here for the vector stuff. So for the vector we have Adobe Illustrator. So Adobe is a company and Illustrator is a application. Also the other application is like your Corel Draw. So Corel Draw is also an application. This is also a vector application. So these two applications which we use widely, that's your vector applications, and which are your raster applications. Raster applications we use as a Photoshop. So it's not like that we don't use Photoshop for print. So for example, if I'm creating an advertisement for a cell phone or any kind of a product, if I'm designing the layout in the vector and if I want to take the images, I can utilize those high quality, high resolution images cropped in Photoshop and take it into any of the applications like Illustrator. You combine this and you can generate the final output. That can be done over here. So as I was talking about over here, is like this is also an Adobe application. So Adobe Illustrator, Adobe is a company and Illustrator is an application. So let's start. So we have different versions which we're using is CC 2015, CC 2016, 2017, 2019, 2020. So let's start with the Illustrator. So you can go into the start, Adobe Master Collection, and you can get this folder. We are using the 2015 over here. I'll just write Illustrator over here. So once I write Illustrator over here, let's start with this Illustrator. So let's click on this application. So I'm just going to go with the basic interface for this application. Once you start up this application, this is a user interface for Adobe Illustrator. So when you're going to start up, you see that this is a blank over here. So let's take a new, go into file. This is a menu bar, file, new. When I say AI is Adobe Illustrator. Let's take a new file. So whenever you're going to take a new document, it's going to ask you what kind of document. You can name the document. Let's name it as new doc. Profile, you're going to work with a print or web or video or film or whatever. So let's take it as we are going to work with the RGB right now. Artboards, number of artboards, that the number of pages, whatever size. This is a grid by row. You want the artboard to set. What's the artboard? Artboards are the number of pages. Okay, when are you going to start? You want in the form of a row, you want in the form of a column, where you want to set it. Alright. After that, the spacing between the artboards, if you are taking over here, you can set the spacing of the artboards that can be defined over here. Very important, that's the size. So whenever you're going to start up, you have to make sure that your size of the page is very important. So what you're making, if you're making a poster, what size you want for the page. If you're making a leaflet, if you're making a brochure, you should know the size of that particular page. So by default, I'll just take it as an A4 page over here. And these are the units. You can set the units as inches. This are I and this is inches. And your orientation of the page, you can set up the orientation, portrait and landscape. So bleed, this is a border which you can leave it from all four corners. You can keep it. So we'll set it afterwards. You can go into this, your color mode. If you're going to work with the print, you can set to CMYK. If you're not going to set with the print, you can just keep it to RGB. Screen resolution, you can keep it to PPI. That's, you can say, the raster effects. That's your pixels per inch. You can, if you want to increase it, you can just increase it. If you're going to work with a screen, you can just keep it as 72 PPI. And let's set the preview mode as default, don't change it. So bleed option, we can change it afterwards also before exporting the files. So once you're done with the settings over here, just click OK. Once you're done with this, so I have taken two artboards. Let's go into the document setup, edit artboards. And if you don't need any artboard, you can just delete this artboard and just come back. So as you can see, I have taken this artboard as landscape. So you can go into document setup, edit artboard, and you can make it as portrait and click on this. So this is called artboard. This is your toolbox. This is your menu bar, and this is your control panel. So whatever things gets off, you can activate from the settings. This is your color panel. You can say a swatch panel. Swatch panel is utilized for storing your colors. So whenever you want to store the colors, you can utilize this swatch panel over here. This is your brush panel. Symbols, will come to that one by one over here. Your gradient panel, your transparency panel, and most important is your layers panel. If you press F7 on your keyboard, or you can go into window and click on the layers. This is your layer panel. So layer panel will definitely help you out. So for example, if you're creating any objects, you can manipulate those objects up and down, like front, foreground and background. That can be done with this stuff. So if you press Ctrl and plus, that's for zoom in, Ctrl minus, that's for zoom out. So if you keep on pressing Ctrl plus and Ctrl minus, that will zoom in and zoom out the window over here. And if you press Ctrl 0, it is going to fit the page on the screen. So if you press Ctrl 0, it's going to fit the page on the screen. If you press space bar and left mouse click pressed and move, it's going to pen the page. So you can easily pen this. So this is your menu bar. So the file extension for Illustrator, if you go into file, save. So the file extension for Illustrator is .ai. So .ai is a file format or file extension for Illustrator. You can also save it in the form of a JPG also. We will come to that. So we'll just keep it over here for today. That's your basic introduction for Illustrator. So in the coming tutorial, I'll be starting up with some of the tools which I'll be showing you over here in the software. So thanks for watching this tutorial.